Welcome to this After Effects tutorial where we will create this pixel scan logo animation right inside of After Effects using no plugins. We are in After Effects. We can see that we have a lot of effects going on all together in here, and the cool thing about this is that this is all procedural. We can easily change the logo, for instance add this, and if we go back to the main composition we can actually get the logo for avatar number 10 where avatar get joined with the matrix. That would be cool. Okay, so let's get started with this tutorial and see step by step how all this can be created. To start, we are going to create a new composition, so composition, new composition, and we are going to call this logo. And we're going to press OK, and here we go, we have an empty composition. We're almost done, so let's just enter our text in here. You can put any logo in here, so let's just simply type in logo, and we can center it by using this align tool. And you can also give it, of course, any font in here. Perfect, we have our logo set up, and now we are going to start creating some elements that will integrate together to create that cool logo. We're going to create another composition, new composition, and we're going to rename this to transition. And it's in full HD resolution, duration 10 seconds, and click OK. Now we need to introduce a simple shape layer, a circle from here. Hold Shift on your keyboard so that it's a complete circle, and make sure it's in the middle in here. We are going to go to ellipse in here, and we're going to hide this fill and simply show that stroke effect. Great, so we have a simple stroke in here, going on, a simple outline, and I'm going to increase this quite a bit, so to something around this size, around 600, and with this we are going to create a transition. Go inside and resize it from ellipse path and size from right over here. I'm going to start this from 0, so the first frame is going to be 0. Then I'm going to hit that stopwatch so that I can start keyframing, and around 2.5 seconds maybe, let's increase that to a very large size until that goes out of the screen. Let's see how that looks. I would like that to be much faster, so something around 1.5 seconds. We can pick those both keyframes, hit F9 on your keyboard to ease them so that they are smooth, so the animation is smoother. Great. And the next thing that we can do is we can animate the stroke as well. So it opens up, it starts from 0 and it opens up. So as you can see right now it is snapping. So let's go to stroke width, and we can click on the stopwatch to put a keyframe in there and move that to around here and start that from 0. Perfect. So now if we see how that looks really great. We can maybe move this a bit forward so that it opens up quicker. Perfect. So that's the base of our effect in there, done. To make this a bit more interesting, we're going to add a shape layer. So we're going to go to layer, new, adjustment layer. To this, we're going to add an effect named turbulent displace. Simply drop it over that layer, and we are going to adjust this to a much lesser size. So the size would be something around that, and amount we can increase it quite a bit, something like that. And displacement from turbulent, we're going to change it to horizontal displacement. And if we have a look at this, now we have a nicer effect going on and more random. Now I'm going to cut this shape layer to around this size, where hold Shift, Command, and D on your keyboard to split it, and we can delete this last part. Great. So now we have this transition effect happening in here that we can use multiple times. So I'm going to rename this to transition, and I'm going to duplicate this, Command D on your keyboard to duplicate, and we can move it around. And like this, we can start building up our animation. And if we have a look at this, we can see that we have that effect. Cool, so we have our first effect done in there. Now we're going to create a new composition, new composition, the same settings in here, and we're going to rename this to Fractal texture. And click on OK, and in here we're going to add a new layer, new solid layer, and let's rename this to Fractal. And we're going to go to the effects and presets and find a Fractal noise effect. Drag and drop it right over here. And with this, we are going to create the screen pixels. Let's modify the settings of this. We're going to leave this to basic. Noise type, we're going to change that to block. And we're going to add some contrast in here, something like this. That's great. and we can lower the brightness quite a bit in here. Let's reduce the complexity to 0. And there you go, you have your pixels in there. You can maybe have a complexity of 2. And then from transform in here, we're going to scale that down quite a bit so that we add that resolution. So let's animate this. To animate this, very simple. We're going to go to the evolution in here, hold Alt on your keyboard and click on that stopwatch. And we're going to type in a very quick expression. We're going to simply type in time times 300. And this will basically take the time value in here, for instance, 1 second, and multiply that by 300. And great, like that we have some animation going on in there, which would look so cool in the end. Let's now create a new composition. So another new composition, and we're going to rename this to main composition. And this is where all the magic will happen. So let's click on OK. And in here, we can start putting our logo. So let's place our logo. We can place our transition, and we can place our fractal texture. So hang in there. Now, what we're going to do is we are going to remove the visibility of these two layers in here and simply work with the fractal texture. And let's actually rename this to LED texture, since we have this like pixel texture in here. With that done, we're going to go to the effect controls panel in here, and we're going to add some effects that will start bringing this all together. So we're first going to use a set matte effect. So set matte, and let's find that and place that over this layer. And we're going to choose logo. And bam, you can see that this has got our fractal texture with that logo. Now I'm going to duplicate this, Command D on your keyboard, and we are going to use now the transition. So we have done 2 of these, one for the logo and one for the transition. And if we play this, you can see immediately our effect in there taking shape. It doesn't look like much right now, but when we add more effects to it, this would really come together. If we have a look at the original composition in here, original project, we can see that we have this like wave going on in here, light wave. So we are going to see how we can create that just right now. So let's go back to our main composition that we have created. And in here, we would like to do a light wave with the edges in here. So to do that, we're going to create a new layer. So layer new solid, and we are going to call this to rim matte. So this would be the rim of that effect. We are going to do a similar approach to the one that we had done before. So we are simply going to copy these to set mattes in here, Ctrl C on your keyboard, and paste them right over to on the rim matte. And now would be a good time to add a fill effect so that we can recolor this if we would like. So let's add a fill effect. Great, so I'm going to change this to white for now. After this, we can add the fast box blur. So let's find it right over here. And we can increase this to around 20. And let's solo this so that we can see just this effect for now. Now let's add another set matte. So I'm simply going to duplicate this, Command D on my keyboard, and I'm going to place it below the fast box blur. And I'm going to select the logo, just like that, but I'm going to invert the matte. And like that, you can see that we have this cool edge glow going on in here. And if we change this from logo to transition, we can see that that changes to just this edge that happens with the transition. Great, so I like how this is looking, but I'm going to add some more detail to this by using a vector blur effect. I'm going to leave the vector blur to natural and the amount to around 200. Let's go to map softness and reduce this to 0. And vector map, we're going to use the LED texture. And like right there, you can see all that detail, which is quite cool, going on right over here. We can add some ridge smoothness in here, so around 50. Great, so I like how this is looking. So let's preview this. Now I am going to unsolo this, and I'm going to duplicate the LED texture from here, Command D on my keyboard, and I'm going to toggle these switches to get the track matte, and I'm going to link the track matte to the rim matte. This way, if we just see this, so right now it's not very visible, so we can add another effect on this to increase its visibility. Let's add a curves effect. And with this curves effect, we can go to the alpha channel and we can increase it like this. And we can add this same curves effect, Ctrl C on your keyboard, to the rim matte effect. And you have a lot of effects in here. You might need to get another monitor to see all of them, but don't worry, we will soon get there. So let's see how this is looking now. And that looks very, very cool. So let's introduce back that LED texture that we had before. And one thing that we are going to do is we are actually going to remove the set matte effect from here and the other set matte effect, so that it is not cut, this one, and it's only cut using the rim matte that we have in here. So let's see how this looks. And like that, we can see the whole wave going on over our logo. So the base is done. Now I'm going to rename this to LED texture rim so that I have everything organized in here. And I'm going to recolor these as well. So I'm going to make this to yellow and the other one to, let's say, blue. And these ones we can set to none. And now this looks cool, but it's time to add some strobes to make it even cooler. To do that, we're going to create a new composition and we're going to rename that to strobes. So press OK. We're going to add the logo in this composition. And there are many ways how you can do this, but we're going to do this in a way that it is procedural. So when you change the logo, the strobes would change as well. So now you know the drill. We're going to add some effects. So we're going to pick that logo. We're going to go to the effects and presets, and we're going to add a simple choker effect. Drag and drop it right over there. And what this does, it basically cuts in the logo just like that and reduces the edge. But we can invert this and use it on the opposite side. If we do a -2, for instance, and it would actually increase the size of the logo. Add a new effect named CC Composite, and let's drag that in. And with this, we can create a stencil of that logo, kind of. So we're going to use Silhouette Alpha. Great. There's not much that you can see in here, but if we add a fill effect in here, so fill, we can recolor that edge to any color that we want. Let's make it to this blue, click on OK, and like that, we get the edge of that logo. So how we can animate this now? We can add another effect named Radial Wipe. So let's bring in Radial Wipe. We are going to set transition completion to 95%, just like that, until we get just that little part in here. And now if we animate the start angle in here, you can see that we can animate this kind of strobe that goes around the logo. So to animate that, I'm going to click on the stopwatch of the start angle in here. I'm going to hit U on my keyboard to show the keyframes, and I'm going to start this from 0, and over a few seconds, over 3 seconds, I'm going to add this to around 15 whole turns in here. Great, this looks very cool. Now I'm going to ease these by selecting them and click F9 on your keyboard. And I would like this to actually start from a tiny strobe to a larger strobe. So to do that, I'm going to animate the transition completion as well. So let's click on that stopwatch, hit U on my keyboard to reveal that keyframe, and I'm going to position this keyframe to around 1 second. And in here, we're going to give it a value of 100 at the start, and at the end, we're going to give it another value of 100. Great, so now it starts from a tiny strobe to a large strobe and then goes back to 0. Now I'm going to simply cut this layer, Shift-Command-D to cut it and delete the other layer. And like that, we have the base of the strobe ready. Close this, and we are going to change this to a 3D layer now, and let's make it even more interesting. So I'm going to duplicate this, Command-D on your keyboard, and I'm going to move it around just like this. And for this new layer that I have duplicated, I'm simply going to give it a new color, so somewhere around this color. And then I'm also going to move the wipe center. So let's move the wipe center to another position here so that the strobe animates a little bit differently. I'm going to duplicate this once again now. So Command-D on your keyboard. I'm going to hit P on my keyboard now to open the position property, and I'm going to move it in the Z space, just like this. So, and if we go to a place where we can see them together, we can see how that will work. Now I'm going to reveal the keyframes to introduce a little bit of randomness in here. And I'm actually going to transition completion. I'm going to change that to 90 instead of 95 for this specific layer. So make sure that you are on that middle keyframe right over there. And like that, you can see that these strobes have different lengths. Now, what we need to do is we actually need to duplicate these some more times to create more strobes. So let's do that. I'm simply going to pick all of these and duplicate, and let's reposition them up in here and move them around just like this. We can actually go to this one in here and also move it swipe center once again to create even more randomness, and do the same for this one. Great, and we can even recolor this if we would like. So let's give it a new color, and this one we can give it like an orange color, like this. And now let's duplicate these one more time. Control D on your keyboard, place them up like that and move them around just like that. So there we have our strobes, and the great thing about this is that if we go to the first composition, the logo composition, we can actually change this text, something like that, and if we go in here, it would update immediately. No, seriously though, you can subscribe if you would like, this would really help us, or maybe even leave a like, this would help us to reach more people. So let's continue, let's go back to main composition, and we can go to the project window and bring in that newly created strobes effect right over here. And we can add the transfer mode of this to add, just like that. Now we can start adding some more effects to make this look nicer. So let's first add a background. So let's create a new solid, and we're going to rename this to BG for background. Click OK and position that at the bottom in there. And we're going to bring in a gradient effect in here. So gradient ramp, drag and drop it over that layer, and we can give it our own colors. Perfect. And a black color in there. We're going to change this to radial ramp, and we're going to position this something around there and move it like that. Perfect. And we can even swap the colors. Move this even further like that, and maybe make this a little bit more saturated but darker, just like this. Wonderful. Now we can go to this LED texture and that LED trim texture in here, and we can select and add transfer mode. We can go to this LED texture and start giving it some color. So we can give it a tint effect. So tint, drag and drop it right over here, and we can give it like a blue color. Perfect. So now I'm going to change this to a 3D layer. Let's change that. I'm simply going to duplicate this LED texture a few times. So Command D on your keyboard to duplicate it, and we can immediately move this in Z space in here. Let's hit P on our keyboard to see what we are doing, and we can move it just a little bit in here, so around 60, and we can change the color of this to something like this pink, and this would start creating those like pixel effects that we have in there. Great, let's now duplicate this one more time and move it a little bit further back and change the color of this again, blue maybe, and then let's duplicate this one more time and move it forward this time, just like that, and change the color of this a brighter color, just like this. Great, so this already looks quite cool, but you can add some more randomness to this. And we can do that by going to the project window in here, and we have this LED texture. We can duplicate this, so Command D on your keyboard. Now we have LED texture too. Let's go in there. We're going to go inside of Fractal in here, and we're going to decrease the brightness quite a bit in here, something around this. Let's make it -80. And in Transform, we're going to offset this so that we get a completely new texture in here. Great. So now let's go back to main composition, and we are going to pick the second one that we have duplicated in here, and we're going to replace it with that new LED texture. So to do that, what I have done is hold Alt on your keyboard and simply drag and drop the new texture over it, just like that, and it would switch without removing the effects that are present on it. So I'm going to do the same for this one here. So simply hold Alt on your keyboard and drag and drop it right over that texture, and it would switch like that. And for the last one here, I'm going to create a new LED texture as well to add even more randomness. So duplicate that, go inside of here, and we're going to click on that fractal layer, go to effect controls, and we're going to bring the brightness way down. Something like that, just as we have done before. We are going to move this somewhere in here to create more randomness. Let's go back to main composition. And now we're going to switch this with that new LED texture tree. So hold Alt on your keyboard or Option if you're on Mac and drag and drop it over that layer. If we have a look at that, we have this unique texture. Duplicate these some more times to add even more brightness in here. And you can see this already building up in here. And now we're going to add another effect to make this even more vibrant. Let's first add a new layer adjustment layer, and we're going to place it right under the strobes. Let's rename this to blur, and we're going to bring in a radial fast blur effect. So drag and drop it over that layer. Now we are going to reduce this to around 20 or even 15. Zoom, we are going to change it from standard to brightest, so that it would only blur the brightest part of this effect. Great, now that looks much better. Let's fit this up to 100%. And now we're going to add another effect, another adjustment layer. So I'm going to duplicate this one. Let's duplicate that, position it right at the top in here, and let's rename this to glow. And I'm going to remove this fast blur from it, and over this I'm going to add some glow effects. So let's type in glow, add that in right over here, and we're going to increase the glow threshold in here. Let's make this to around 0.5, and glow radius is good. I'm going to duplicate this one more time, and let's now increase the glow radius to around 50. Let's duplicate this one more time, one last time, and we're going to change this to around 300, the glow radius. Perfect. And you can try maybe increasing this and see what this does. So let's make it around 1, and let's preview this. Great, and now our logo is glowing just like that. Perfect, so we can even make it more intense by modifying the transfer mode of this. So let's go to mode and select add. And like that, you can really start seeing this whole thing popping up. So now what we would like to do is make those strobes a little bit brighter, since we can barely see them. So to do that, I'm simply going to pick all of these glow effects in here. Let's pick them all. Control C or Command C on your keyboard to copy, go over the strobes and layer and paste them right over here. And there you go now, those are popping up as well. And now this looks quite interesting. Great, so now let's make this wave even more intense. And to do that, I'm simply going to go over this LED texture rim and Command D on your keyboard to duplicate that. And you can duplicate it a few times in here. And that would increase, of course, its intensity. Great, now if we take a look at the original logo, we can notice that only one final step is left, which is basically this shockwave and the reveal of the final logo. So let's see how we can create that. So to do that, we're going to go to the project window in here and find the composition that we have done previously, named transition. And I'm going to duplicate this and rename this to final transition. Great, so let's enter into it. And we have this transition going on. I'm going to delete all of the layers apart from one, and I'm going to expand this till the end, just like that. Now let's open this up in here, and it's going to be a very simple step. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this stroke in here and add the fill. And like this, we have this nice transition that is opening up just like that. Now we can make this even more interesting by bringing in the LED texture that we had done before. And let's hide this for now. Go to the adjustment layer that we had before and go to the effect controls panel, and we're going to add a vector blur over here. Let's drag and drop it right over here. Let's select as vector map that LED texture and increase the amount. Reduce the map softness, and like that we can get those pixels of the logo inside of that transition. Now I am going to pick that composition, this whole composition, and duplicate it one more time. So Control D on your keyboard, and I'm going to rename this to Shockwave. Let's enter into it, double click, and let's go on this adjustment layer, go to Effect Controls, and we have the effects right over here. And first we need to go to this layer named Transition and Command D to duplicate that. And I'm simply going to move it by one frame, just one single frame, toggle the switches in here, go to the first layer, the one at the bottom in here, and as track matte, we're going to pick the layer above it. And we need to do one more step, we need to invert that track matte. And to do that, in After Effects 2023, we can click this button right over here. And like that, we get that rim right over there. Perfect. So that's our shockwave. We can adjust this just slightly. So let's go to Adjustment layer in here, and we can increase the size of this turbulent displace to something around here, and even the amount a bit more. And we can change it from horizontal displacement to turbulent. And we can maybe decrease a bit the size just slightly, just like that. And now at the end, we can add a radial fast blur. So let's find that right over here. And we can increase this to around 100 or even a bit less, somewhere around there. And if we play this, we get our shockwave. Great, we can maybe play a little bit with this turbulent displace, increase the size. So something around 32 looks cool. And you can see how that works. Now, of course, if you would like that to be faster, you can do that. Let's hit U on our keyboard to reveal the keyframes in here. Let's hit U on our keyboard to reveal the keyframes of this as well. And we can pick both of those keyframes and reposition them somewhere around here. And like that, the transition would be faster. So one final thing is that I'm going to pick this layer and move that final keyframe a few frames forward in here, so that it would start large and it would end into nothing, just like that. Let's preview that. So this looks great. Now we can add this to the main composition. Let's go to main composition. So we want to reveal the final logo at around this time, at around 4 seconds. So let's first drag and drop our logo. This would be the final scene, kind of. And then we're going to add the final transition right over here. Let's retime it to around this time as well. And for the logo, we're going to go to toggle the switches in here, and we're going to set the track matte of that to that final transition, just like that. And now, as you can see, it fades in just like that. Now, before I'm going to add the shockwave, I'm just going to mention that the project files of this project are available on Envato Elements, so you can find the link below in there. So if you have a subscription there, you can download it from there, and by doing that, you would be even supporting our channel. Of course, if you don't have a subscription, you can even just leave a like on this video, and that would really support us to create even more videos for you. So let's continue. Let's bring in that shockwave effect right over here. Let's position it somewhere around here and maybe move it a little bit backward, just like that. And we can change that to add, just like that. And if you would like that to be more intense, it's best to place it under the glow right over here. And we can duplicate that if we would like to make it even more intense. I'm just going to undo that since I like how it looks like this. We can even place the logo in here and the final transition behind that glow. And we can even recolor this. So if we bring in a tint effect, we can place it over the shockwave, and we can recolor it to have the color of that logo. And we can easily go back to the logo composition, and we can change this text to whatever we like, and we can even add a logo in here. So I'm going to add my logo right over here, and let's resize this. And immediately, if we go back to the main composition, you can see that update right over here. Very cool. So that is it, guys. You have done it. Of course, we will be releasing even more tutorial videos over this channel to learn After Effects together. So if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and even maybe comment below and tell us how are you going to use this effect. And while we're at it, if you would like to see how you can create this cool grainy glow effect, click on this video to see how that can be done.